You got kids?
I haven't, no.
Oh, good.
I did just recently get married, so it's a matter of time now, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yes,
well, no hurry. It'll be around.
Yeah.
Don't get any ideas.
Yeah, just home and tell my wife. Well, Michael Douglas said I should have a child.
Right.
So. Right. You must have been pretty excited when you heard about the prospect of your character playing such an integral role in this sequel.
Yeah, I was very excited. And I found out about 2 months, I think, before we started shooting. I was sent an email with the PDF of the title card, and that was my kind of surprise gift. You know, there was sort of no lead up to it, no drum roll, no preamble of the director sort of prepping me and telling me what was coming. There was just an email sent, and it was sort of a cheeky way of saying, ta-da!
I mean, you have a writing credit here, of course. Is it literally you guys sitting in a room kind of brainstorming, or is it a script that's passed around to each of you?
Absolutely, it's us sitting in a room brainstorming. And I was thinking of general ideas along with Peyton while we were shooting Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Ant-Man, the first one. And at the end, I thought, what if we did a second one? What's something that might be worth exploring? But then it's always evolving, always changing, and I would say by the time we were a year out, we started getting, we'd been working on a rough version, and then 8-9 months out, we were all in a room, kind of 5 of us, these 2 guys, Eric Summers and Chris McKenna, who have worked on other Marvel films as well. I think did really a lot of heavy lifting and gave this thing shape and story. But we sat and would trade pages and have cards on the wall and hopefully have something by the time that we were ready to shoot.
There's so much more to these movies than kind of meet the eye. Each film is placed within a kind of much broader context of the whole Marvel cinematic universe. I was wondering what your knowledge of Marvel's like. Do you know much about the other films and other characters, or are you very much just about what's on the script in this movie?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. On this one, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I got the script and I said, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is ridiculous. I can't understand this at all. And I went to Peyton, and I said, Peyton, this really is. They said, yeah, it does. Peyton, he said, Michael, in Captain America, you remember when Paul went to Europe and he took his suit with you? I said, Peyton, I didn't see Captain America. All right. I said, what? I said, yes. I said, look, I'm happy to be here. I love this. And I'm happy for all the fans out there that love Marvel or who are comic book guys. And Peyton Reed, our director, is a serious comic book kid from Vincent. I never read comic books. So, yes, it's been an area where I have to sort of remain silent. I mean, I love the world. I can't tell you, I'm going to begin to learn the amount that I have to learn at my age. So it's better to stay quiet.
So we haven't got time for my Marvel quiz then. We'll save that for next one.
Oh, you should save that for somebody else.
It was really early on. We decided we wanted this movie to be called Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it just felt like a natural progression from the first movie. We'd spent this time with Hope Van Dyne, who in the first movie is clearly the more capable to take care of Hank Pym's problem. I mean, she trains Ant-Man in the first movie, but her dad is holding her back. So in this one, now that she'd resolved the issues with her father, it was the thing that excited me most about this movie, is presenting Wasp as a fully formed hero. And it also owed to the comic books, too. Like, they were a partnership in the comics. So for all those reasons, it kind of suggested itself early on, well, that's what this movie should be about.
Because this really is, I think this really is your character's movie. By the way, I won't tell Paul that I said
Please
that.
Don't tell Paul.
But it is, though, isn't it?
Oh, that's nice. That's sweet. And I mean, in a way, the first film was his origin film, and I was there to support and amplify that for him. And in the second film, he's an established superhero. We've seen him in Ant-Man. We've seen him in Civil War. We love him. We adore him. And so it wasn't as important to establish who he was and what he was, but it was very important to establish the Wasp because we'd never seen her in action before. This is essentially her origins film. But that said, it's an equal two-hander. It's very much a partnership. And the whole film, the idea is that it's about her coming to terms with the fact that it takes two.
Does it surprise you? A lot of actors always say that they kind of join into this kind of huge machine, which is the MCU, and find they have so much more freedom than they kind of maybe initially envisaged they might have in such a big blockbuster setup.
Well, for sure. And as far as the writing goes, and I was also one of them on the first one, it was never the intention. It just kind of happened. And I was nervous because it was not really my comfort zone. I don't know how to write a comic book movie, really. And all I ever do when I'm thinking about anything, regardless of genre, is character and the relationship that the person would have with somebody else. I think of character arcs and story. And then when it comes to writing dialogue, I'm just very sensitive to over sentimentality or unearned seriousness and tension. I tend to undercut everything in hopes that that's what gets the point across, the sentimentality across, or the seriousness across anyway. I don't know, my default, as far as on brand, I don't know what my brand would be, but I know that, like, oh, this seems like a funny or fun thing to say, and it gets, but I'm kind of thinking about all the characters. What's weirder is writing something and hearing somebody else say something. That's a strange sensation.
And also, I mean, similarly to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as well, one of the themes is kind of reconnecting with a parent. And I'm just wondering, I mean, why do you think that is a theme that's now being explored in this genre? Do you think it's because perhaps that the older we get, the more we sort of learn about our own parents' sort of fallibility, that we're kind of projecting that in some ways into stories on screen?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it is kind of inherently what the Ant-Man movies are about. It's one of the few things where in the MCU where it's a generational story. I mean, the title really reflects 2 generations of Ant-Men and Wasps. And I also like it's one of the few Marvel movies where there's a mentor figure with Hank Pym. He's a bit of an unreliable mentor in some ways. He's got some issues, which I really like about it. But yeah, I don't know if it's coincidental actually between our movie and Guardians 2, but they both deal with, with father figures and their kids. For me, I just think in this movie, it was always baked in from the very beginning, whether it's Hank and Hope or Scott and Cassie or even metaphorically in our movie with Bill Foster and Ava.
Of course, on the surface, this is a big kind of superhero blockbuster that's kind of decorated in the world of make-believe, but your character's going on a very human journey, isn't it? I mean, this is very much about reconnecting with his wife, who he thought he'd lost. Right. I mean, was it quite easy to connect to this film on human terms, despite the fact it's obviously in a big sort of comic book setup?
Well, it's sort of my responsibility. I mean, my role, responsibility, as it was in the first one, to kind of give it a little bit of gravitas and Scott and Michael Pena were kind of responsible for a lot of maintaining the humor and the story, and so even in the first one, I think just the storyline and everything needed that kind of I guess why they hired me, the gravitas. And this one, it's a great setup in the fact that we think we might believe that my wife Janet, after 30 years, is still alive. And then we have the vehicle to get to her, so that feeling of hope. The tough part was I was worried when we came to that point of me getting to find her, and dealing with emotionally the reality of seeing your wife alive after 30 years, how that was going to fit in a comedy action Marvel movie. And I was really happy with it. A lot of people have told me they found it a very moving moment and were sort of touched by it in the picture. And I think one of the aspects of it, besides the brilliant filmmaking, Peyton Reed and all of our technical advisors that they did, was having that heart, having the family relationships that existed. My relationship with Hope. Scott's relationship, Paul Rudd's character with his daughter, and of course finding my wife.
This is the first female Marvel character to have their name in a title. I mean, you must be so proud to be that actress behind that, but at the same time a little bit perplexed that it's taken this long for that to actually even be a thing that's happening now. I mean, it's kind of mad.
Doubly or triply perplexed when you look at the incredible women who already exist in the MCU who are deserving of a title film, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that somebody, for example, as seasoned as Black Widow would not be the first one. But I think it's just happened to be that they wanted to tell this story at this moment. It had nothing to do with me, it had nothing to do with me. I just got lucky. It was like a lottery, and they the Ant-Man and the Wasp were two of the founding members of the Avengers, and they were always a couple. They were always together. And so it is sort of a nice way, I think, to usher women into this title position, to have it be about this partnership and have it be equal billing together is really beautiful. And then, of course, Captain Marvel is going to be coming along with her own standalone film. And I've also another journalist told me that he's been reading things about director's lists for a Black Widow movie or something. I don't know, but I'm sure it's just the beginning.
There is, well, I mean, there's one scene where you're kind of speaking as someone else. It's my favourite scene in the movie. It's where you're channeling your inner Michelle Pfeiffer. You obviously got, in that scene, you obviously hold Michael Douglas's hand. I was thinking, I kept sitting there thinking, kiss. Right. Did you ever just say to Michael, look, maybe we should just kiss in this scene? Because I just thought that's what it felt right for the moment.
Yeah, I didn't even. We never talked about it. I never really thought about it.
Just
really.
me.
No. I think a lot of people did, because Peyton was asked this question too. I don't. Did you ask Peyton this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, did you talk to him already?
I've already spoken to him.
Oh,
damn.
Yeah, I mean, it would. Make sense, right? But and same with Hope. But it was such a big swing, that scene. We thought this is going to be either this is going to work or it's just going to crash and burn. But if it works, it could be really, really good and funny and strange, and yet moving and. But we never did. Yeah, we never did the kiss.
There's still time.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, Hank is something of a sort of technological mastermind. What are you like with technology in real life? Do you know your way around a MacBook?
Oh, please. I don't know. I mean, all I can do with my iPhone is make a phone call and get a message, you know. I'm just, I'm a dinosaur. I'm literally just on the edge, clawing to hold on and keep up. My kids, Dylan and Karis, they just, blow me off. Dad, give me that now, Dad, so I'm hanging in there.
And I mean, one of the things I liked about this, there's some great pet names in here. So, of course, we hear Peanut, which is what Ant-Man refers to, that's what Scott calls his daughter Peanut. And then there's Hope, it's called Jelly Bean by her mother. I was wondering if you got a favourite pet name that you like to give to your kids, or even a pet name that you were given when you were a kid. I always imagine your dad might have called you Champ, something like Champ.
I don't think I can say it on television. Something I said. Well, no. The only name that came. I did a television series called The Streets of San Francisco for many years, and in that series, Carl Malden used to call me Buddy Boy until it was coming out of my ears. I had to pull him aside. Carl, please don't call me Buddy Boy anymore.
I do have names for my kids when they were born, and when I was young, my mom and dad used to call me Squeaky Pete, because whenever I ate food, I would always go make these sounds, and I guess they used to call me Squeaky Pete as a result of that.
The film has got so many moments of light relief, and it's incredibly comedic at times. I was wondering how challenging that is as a filmmaker to implement those moments of light relief without ever kind of compromising on the kind of severity of the narrative implications.
Yeah, the tone is a balancing act, and I'm really thankful to have Paul Rudd as part of it, not just as lead actor, but as a writer as well, because it really is important to kind of, if it gets too light, it's just going to spin off and have no stakes. So you want it to have dramatic stakes, so a lot of that comes in. We just try everything on set. We'll do versions of every joke that sort of seem like, well, this is going to be way too much. Sometimes you get in the cutting room and it is too much. But sometimes you get in the cutting room, it's like, okay, this is a laugh at the right time. We've built enough tension that we can puncture it with a laugh here. So it's nice to have those options, but it is, like you said, it's very delicate.
And in real life, I really hate wasps. I love ants, but I can't stand wasps.
A lot of people
do you now feel now you're the wasp? Do you feel like you have to be on the defensive? Do you find yourself kind of like defending wasps now, because they are an annoying little creature? But I guess you must have a kind of affinity with them now.
Says you. All my life, I have been defending insects and bugs. All my life, I was the bug girl. I was a little girl who would take caterpillars, huge black furry caterpillars, and cover myself in them from head to toe and go around and scare all the other little girls in the community, go to my mother's door, scare her half to death. I used to protect insects from being killed. If you tried to kill an insect in front of me, right to this day, I would scold you, and I would carry that little insect out to freedom. I'm the same with lizards. There's a lot of lizards
love
where I live,
lizards.
and I always catch them and put them outside instead of killing them as well. Lots of people kill lizards if they find them, and I'm like, that's horrible.
No, I never killed wasps. Just never really liked them. But
I'm actually have multiple wasp nests around my house at this moment, and my son was telling me, Mom, all we got to do is shoot him with this, and he's got this whole plan to eradicate them. And I was like, hey, leave those be. These are my sisters.
obviously Marvel has a huge following, particularly amongst the kind of younger crowd at the moment. I was wondering if you've found yourself getting recognised now in the street as being Hank, and just across the course of your career, what do you think is the one film or the one thing you've made that is you most get referred to, that you most get sort of fans on the street speaking to you about?
Well, for sure, with these, this has hit a new audience for me. I'm very grateful to my son Dylan, who encouraged me to do a sequel of this. That there's a new audience out there, and it's true. You know, there was a whole bunch of little kids out there go Ant-Man that never did before. Probably Gecko, Wall Street. You know, is the one I get. I mean, it's always the one that most amazes me because. Usually it's always somebody out of the banking or Wall Street business. You're the you're the guy that got me into this. You're the guy. I saw that movie. I want to do it. I said, I was the bad guy. Remember, I went to jail. Nah. I said, yes.
And I mean, of course, this film slots into a kind of wider universe. I mean, obviously, this takes place kind of after Civil War, and when it comes to these films, loads of little storylines and stuff can influence and have impacts on other films in the MCU. How much do you have to pay attention to that? Obviously, you want to create a really great standalone movie, but how much in your mind is paying attention to other films and what this could mean to other movies in the universe?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I approach it in two different ways. One, as a fan, I mean, I just pay attention to these movies. I want to know what's happening, and obviously there's a lot of communication between the different directors in the MCU about what's going on. You know, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a bit more standalone because it's a story about this family. We don't have to actually service any of the Infinity Stones or anything like that. Having said that, you know, we came out after Infinity War, and it's hard to ignore the giant dramatic happenings at the end of Infinity War. So we knew we were going to have to deal with that at a certain point. And we landed sort of on the structure that you see in the finished movie. And it felt like a very specific Ant-Man and Wasp way to deal with those events.
I kept looking for you in Infinity War but couldn't find you. Wasn't sure if that's because you were actually in it, just very small.
Really tiny, yeah.
But it does sound like you'll be in the next one. Have conversations started about that? Have you started? Well, I'm assuming it's been shot already, hasn't it? Or so. Just wondering about what we can expect from Ant-Man or what you're allowed to say about Ant-Man's involvement.
I'm not really allowed to say anything, I think. And there's also a lot that I don't know. You know, they're fun to see because I kind of discover them along with everybody else. There's some things that I know. But those things I unfortunately am not allowed to divulge.
That was worth a go. Is it quite difficult when you have to let your characters go off into the ensemble Avengers films? Is it a bit like when you're a parent and you see your kid off on a school trip?
Oh yeah,
and you
it's
see
painful.
The teachers because it's almost like now their dialogue and their stories and their relationships are in the hands of someone else. It must be a bit tough to watch.
No, I'm on record when Paul went off to join the Russo brothers on Captain America: Civil War and they sort of got the giant man thing. I was so envious. Paul and I would I would text him and I was like, hey, how's it going over there on Civil War? He's like, oh man, this is great. I'm hanging out with Captain America. I'm hanging out with all these other heroes. Now I feel like I'm in a Marvel movie. And I was like, well, wait, you didn't feel that way on the first movie? But yeah, you do. You get this weird sort of envy.
Because, I mean, the MCU, I mean, it is quite incredible what's happening at the moment in cinema. I mean, every year there'll be a small handful of movies and each are just incredible. I mean, every film is kind of outdoing the last, and they're all really kind of pushing each other. As a filmmaker in the MCU, is that competition really healthy? I guess there must be a real inclination at the moment for everyone you can see what else is out there, to everyone to try and better themselves and better each other, which I guess is only going to result in kind of better films, I suppose.
I really like it. I mean, as a director in Hollywood, it's weirdly rare that you get to hang out with other directors. And at Marvel, there are those conversations, and you kind of get to talk about process and how each other makes a movie. And we're the third Marvel movie this year, Black Panther, Infinity War, and us. And they're very different movies by design. We have very different storytelling aspirations for each movie. But I can't think of more talented filmmakers than, Ryan Coogler with Black Panther and the Russo brothers and James Gunn. And there's a whole great group of people working who all have really different sensibilities. But we can be allowed to kind of express our sensibilities, and it all sort of works under this giant umbrella. It's a really cool creative experiment that, I'd done a lot of movies before the Marvel movies, and it's really an interesting storytelling thing to have them interconnected.
Because and also if you'll never see the kind of an ode to how the quality of these movies. You've got at one point you're directing Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Lawrence Fishburne in the same scene. That sort of transcends genre movies, doesn't it? In some ways, when you've got people like that on board.
I think it's a real testament to what Marvel's been able to do. Way preceding me. It's like it wasn't that long ago that these types of movies may be considered B movies and didn't necessarily attract top talent, and now you've just got the top people in Hollywood, young and old, kind of banging down the doors to want to be in a Marvel movie. I think that says a lot about the quality. And there is a fun kind of competitive nature between, the storytellers within that thing of like, oh, I want to do this differently. I want to top this. I want to do this thing. And I like that. I think it does fuel creativity.
And just very quickly before I go, obviously you're an incredibly established actor of your own right who I'm sure isn't daunted by working alongside anyone. Having said that, having Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer as your parents must have been pretty cool.
It's a dream. It's a freaking dream, and it's ridiculous. First of all, it's ridiculous that I get to do that I get to act opposite those two incredible acting icons, but it's also absolutely ridiculous that anybody could suggest that I was the genetic results of Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer. Nobody looks like that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey